So Elon Musk has said that X is the platform for citizen journalism, and we've got a fantastic example of citizen journalism. I couldn't help but put the Botox picture of Matt Gaetz on the screen. Man, I'll tell you, I don't know why he let anybody do this to him, but I'm going to keep making fun of this as long as we have the opportunity to keep talking about Matt Gaetz. Lucas, what do you think? Should we dive into this story a bit? I'll throw it on the screen right now.
It's not the Botox that does it for me. It's actually the waxed eyebrows.
The waxed eyebrows, the way it looks like he's astonished or something.
And
It's like,
I don't mean to drag Matt through the mud, but just a note to everybody out there: don't wax your eyebrows. And
if you're a guy and you're gonna wax anything, the only thing you should be waxing is your mustache. Grow out a beautiful mustache, wax it, curl it like Snidely Whiplash. That's the only way.
this is true. And go for the Salvador Dali, something to a point with a tight curl at the end of it. So yeah, let's dive in though to
Village crazy lady Mel.
I didn't notice her handle, the Village crazy lady. And Village is Village yeah, the Ville. No, yeah. Anyway,
Missing an A in Village.
yeah,
Village.
right. Villahe. Well, thank you to the Village crazy lady for digging into the court cases and the allegations against Matt Gaetz and putting this story together, because I recalled Matt Gaetz going on Tucker Carlson, and I recalled the Joel Greenberg associations with the case, but I didn't know, as it was breaking, I wasn't sure what all to believe, how much I guess I had lost less faith in the FBI at that time, but this was in the wake of understanding what had gone on with James Comey and the FBI investigating Donald Trump going into the 2016 election, and then issuing the letter with regards to what the Comey letter about Hillary, and and even more damning, the understanding that they had participated in the cover up of the authenticity of Hunter Biden's laptop. So I had before liked to, I've always had a very dismal opinion of the CIA because of the nature of the business and those people that it attracts, especially for foreign operations, and we'll see some of that in this story. But the FBI seemed to hold itself to a higher standard, although that seems like it is much degraded, or maybe always was so. But yeah, let's dig in.
Yeah, let's start with a little bit about this story. So when I first encountered it, I started reading through it and I thought it was fascinating. Kept reading, and it's a very long thread. If you look through it, it's got just piece after piece. And the first question that I had after reading through the 3-part series that you put together over, I don't know, maybe 50 tweets or something like that, was, how on earth could she have come up with this information? That was my first thought, is like, if this is citizen journalism, okay, it almost seemed like she had some insider information. How did she put it together? And that question actually was asked by somebody else, and she responded to it. So we'll get into that maybe after we start dissecting this a bit more. So yeah, definitely always question the source, question what you're reading, but I think in this case we might have some real genuine information. So let's go through it. So we've got this guy Joel Greenberg, and he's down in Florida. And I think what the first part of this story is that Greenberg was handing out fake credentials that were being issued to underage women, and
Well, he was a tax collector.
tax collector.
He was a tax collector who, the story makes allegations that he was a rich kid who got a job in politics and maybe was in over his head and started embezzling, and actually got busted, or drew first attention to himself because he was involved in a crypto scam. So maybe
it always ties back to crypto.
Everybody be careful out there. Crypto is a dangerous world.
The only
So
valid use of crypto is to
yeah,
break
yeah.
the
So
law.
and what we can imagine that maybe he had access to some accounts for the county, to some tax accounts, and they have multiple accounts, different streams where money is going into. I don't know all the details there, but if he went to jail for embezzlement and a crypto scam, you can see the story kind of laying out that he probably took some money that was public money and invested in crypto, thought he would get rich, and
That reminds me of a story that I once heard where a guy was going to invest in a business, and he decided, instead of just straight out investing the money in the business, he took it to the track and tried to double his money, and instead of doubling his money, lost it all and then never got the business. Like that sort of a thing that happens. Like people would do that. They go to the casino or go bet on a horse, and now I guess you bet on crypto. You go bet on dog with hat.
we need to how about horse with tail? Um, but anyway, so he gets he loses some money fraudulently, and he gets drawn into allegations of that fraudulence. He's being investigated, and lo and behold, the investigators come to discover that he has also been passing out fake IDs. And why has he
And
been?
he was passing out fake IDs because he had access to the mechanisms of the issuance of these IDs. Is that what it is?
In Florida, the tax collector is also the issuer of state identification.
Seems like the right division of labor. I mean, that's yeah, you gotta try and save some money somewhere.
Yes, Zacchaeus was a wee little man. Um, so he gets drawn in. Or it's discovered that not only is he issuing fake IDs, but he
Well,
is.
actually, these are valid IDs. They're fraudulent valid IDs because they're actually issued by the state of Florida. So they're actually legit though, right? Because he's
Well,
in
they're
control of
from
the.
they're from the valid authority, but they are fake IDs because the identification of or the person that they are identifying is not, the it's not true. So it is a fake ID. Even if you can convince the issuer of your state identification to lie on your state ID, it's still a fake ID. But it's fake in the information that it's conveying, not from the source. It doesn't, it doesn't make you 18. It doesn't make you 21. And to make matters worse, some of the IDs that he apparently issued were to underage women that he was sleeping with. And he was using a website to meet some of these women, and was giving them IDs that inflated their age, so they appeared to be of the age of consent. So and that's where that's where we turn down I don't know, that's one of the many twists in this story. So because he is because well in
Oh, the name of the site was Sugar Daddy. That was the website. We got to plug the site.
I couldn't find it.
And
So
I pulled it up. I'm gonna keep kind of scrolling through as we go. Like I'm not actually plugging the site. That was a joke. Don't go on Sugar Daddy.
well, so the Department of Justice, August 2020, charges Joel Greenberg with trafficking a minor, identity theft, and production of false identification documents, among other things. And not convicted at this point, but just charged. And at some point in this, Matt Gaetz enters the picture, and the village crazy lady gives us this picture of, I don't know if you recognize the man on the left, but that is Roger Stone. How much do you know about Roger Stone?
I remember hearing his name in the news quite a bit during the first Trump administration. I believe he had something to do with Trump, right?
Well, I might color this with a little background information in that Roger is a proud swinger in Washington D.C. Um, an unapologetic swinger in Washington, and you hear less about that these days. And
Yeah, the swingers was a big thing in the 70s.
well,
This is
I mean,
wife swapping, right? This is where married couples would trade partners.
well, it doesn't have to be wives.
And
I just
it was mostly that though, because in the 70s a lot of people were married, right? It's just
well,
a cultural thing.
I think Roger Swinger. Roger
Roger Swinger, Roger
Roger
Stone.
Swinger. I think Roger Stone is probably not. I don't think it's an era of his past. Because part of the reason that there was a um, that Roger Stone was ostracized in Washington was because he was unapologetic in his in the in his in his private life, in his sexual practices.
Well, I mean, Washington D.C. used to have quite the moral police. I mean, what Bill Clinton was
Well,
impeached for sexual indiscretions. That sort of stuff. You wouldn't even bat an eye at some of the things that he was accused of back then and these days. So I
what
don't, to whatever extent the moral police are still up in arms about things.
I mean, and this, not just Bill Clinton, but Gary Hart. Gary Hart removed himself from the presidential campaign before in the race before Bill Clinton because there were allegations that he had a girlfriend, and he did have a girlfriend. His wife knew about it. They were. It's yes, there is a history of American politicians that lead sort of this double life with regards to what their private life is, and this is
Goes back to your whole Puritan ethos that permeates American politics.
well, to me, this is also why we need to understand that exists in American politics, and that has been a tool to discredit politicians. And it's sad to me that we often fall prey to this trap of worrying about. I mean, look at Donald Trump and many of the allegations that have been levied against him, and yet, um, when we're electing a president,
Well, this was why Matt Cawthon got into so much trouble, right? Because he kind of alluded to some of the stuff that was going on, and then they hustled him out of there lickety split.
well, he alluded to it, and I mean, I'm not sure what exactly was going on there. Matt Cawthon seemed to have quite a brazen mouth, and also to be very young to be in his position of power. So I often thought that he was probably a puppet that was easily who was a who could be emotionally manipulated. And again, I think like we have concepts like the age of consent, and we in a democratic society should be concerned about the policies, the things that improve or are better for our constituents of a politician. And we are very easily distracted by allegations with regards to sexual impropriety or what's going on in their private life. And that has always been. I mean, even Ulysses S. Grant is he's remembered for being a drunk for having a little bit too much whiskey and walking down Pennsylvania Avenue whenever he was president. And a lot of people who didn't like his policies when he was president, all of a sudden it was just easy to say, "Oh, he's a drunk." Well, we do ourselves no service whenever we allow a conversation about policy to be captured by concerns about character. But anyway, that's one long tangent with regards to just, Roger Stone is part of the reason that Roger Stone is a persona non grata in many circles in Washington is because he is open about his private life, and I actually applaud him for that, and I wish that even this is why I thought Matt Gaetz should stand up with regards to these charges against him, and as we come to find out. I mean, to me, much is exonerated when we understand the details of what was going on here. But Matt Gaetz meets this Joel Greenberg, and from what we can kind of piece together, because we know that Matt at some point sent 2 Venmo payments to 2 women who would have been underage at some point whenever he knew them. But we also know that the Department of Justice investigated this thoroughly and never brought charges against him. And so you can begin to maybe presume that they possibly were in possession of IDs that stated they were older than they actually were. And if Matt Gaetz had met them, and you meet someone, you go to the bar, they produce an ID and they have a drink, you think, well, they must be 21. Well, if they have a fake ID and they're not 21, what is the degree of culpability in that regard? So I think that is probably the truth of the reason that Matt Gaetz was vulnerable to what's the word I'm looking for here, Grant?
Blackmail, extortion.
Exactly, blackmail and extortion, and it would seem that that's exactly what happened. And sadly, that the blackmailing and extortion was not from private citizens, but came from the FBI or the CIA. And that's where this story takes another dark turn, and we come to a man who was imprisoned in Iran at the time. Daniel, I believe it was Levinson. Was it Daniel Levinson?
This is David McGee.
Well, David McGee seems to be
no, Bob Levinson. Bob Levinson. Former FBI agent, Bob Levinson.
Yes. So Bob Levinson seems to be somebody who was working for the intelligence community, possibly for the United States, possibly for Israel, because he is Jewish, and much of the Jewish community. I don't know if you're following any thoroughfare here, but Greenberg, Levinson, there is a Jewish element to this. Anyway, Bob Levinson is imprisoned in Iran, and members of the American Jewish community are very concerned with freeing him. And that's where we get David McGee. And David McGee is a former Department of Justice official who begins to pressure Matt Gaetz and Matt's father, Don Gaetz, to pay for to pay off a team to extract Bob Levinson from Iran. Is this what you were? Have I gone far afield here? Because there was a lot to consider in this story.
Well, I don't know if you see on the screen, but I pulled up a summary of this entire thing, because the Village Crazy Lady had this over many posts in sort of the old school way, and then somebody came in and tried to rewrite it, summarize it. Who knows if they ChatGPT'd it or whatever? But yeah, that's it's tracking the summary. So yep, keep going.
Yeah, so and they called Don Gates in to have some sort of meeting. I think it was a dinner, and Don Gates both asked was going to wear a wire, but also asked for a, writing leading into this meeting that it was on the behest of the FBI. And the FBI reluctantly gave that up. Why would they be reluctant about that? And not only reluctantly gave it up, but the next day, the operation had been leaked to the New York Times. So when you think about those elements to the story, you think, oh, was this a was this an operation that was that was aimed at compromising Don Gates and thus Matt Gaetz to set them up as as trying to lobby for the or trying to bribe a public official whenever it was the Department of Justice, the FBI, that set them up to bribe this public official to begin with. And these are the allegations that Matt Gaetz then goes on Tucker Carlson and levies as to the unbelievable things that are occurring with him and his family in order to pressure politicians to release Bob Levinson in Iran.
So it gets me thinking about what what's really going on with Matt Gaetz and his potential appointment as Attorney General. So all of this that's coming out or that was being investigated by the Health Ethics Committee, this was all pretty well known. I mean, what Village Crazy Lady said was she dug through a bunch of public information to put this story together, allegations that were in these lawsuits or things that had come out as a party to the lawsuit. So I got to imagine that when Trump's appointing Matt Gaetz or floating his name as an appointee, that all of this was known to them.
Well, absolutely, it was known to yeah, absolutely it was known to them, and this is if you followed Matt Gaetz in the last couple of years and the in the House hearings, whenever he has put Merrick Garland and Christopher Wray, director of the FBI, on the spot and forced them into revealing that they were lying, they won't answer, or that their answers don't line up. You can see that he is very aware and has been subjected to the dirty perfidy of their actions. They and not only that, I mean, they open up this investigation on him. They leak it to the New York Times to try to discredit him. They sit on these allegations, and we begin to understand why. They're they have proof that he had some sort of contact with probably underage persons, and yet they are also aware that these people had ostensibly valid but fake falsified ID from the state of Florida. And knowing that, they use his compromised position to try to use him in an operation to extort money and to have money to be used to extract an operative of the CIA from Iran.
So, but the question that comes to my mind, and I'm not saying you particularly have like the right answer, but I'm curious to hear what your speculation might be on this. Why float Matt Gaetz's name for Attorney General, and then why have him withdraw? Like, what's the underlying story here? Was this to flush out the senators that wouldn't be loyal to Trump? I've heard that floated as like some kind of a 5D chess art of the deal reason why this would have been done this way. But at the same time, Matt Gaetz resigned from the House, so he's not part of Congress anymore. And what's going to happen to him? He resigns. He's put up for Attorney General. Now he's not going to be Attorney General. So what's his career path here? What's going on?
Well, we don't know what's going to happen in the future, but we know. I would say that the reasons were this: one, because he has a righteous vendetta against the FBI, and Trump is probably looking for somebody that shared, or that had, shared Trump's own righteous vendetta against the FBI. If you're going to try to take out,
It's like everybody in the Trump administration at this point has a righteous vendetta against the FBI, including what's probably Kennedy as well, and Tulsi
well,
Gabbard for sure, because she gets put on that list, right? Like they all got an axe to grind.
well, and that's the large theme. It's also interesting that many of these characters come from Florida, so Trump is not making the same mistake of playing ball and finding somebody who is part of these existing organizations and is going to promise them, oh, I'm not going to be like the rest of them. I'm gonna be loyal to you, Donald Trump. We also begin to look at the narrative of Trump asking for loyalty from members of his cabinet and administration in his first administration, and that takes on a whole new cast of.
That's been one of the criticisms that's been leveled against all of the Trump picks. Is it seems like the first qualification that they have is loyalty to Trump.
Well, I can fully understand that whenever you see the duplicit, the the secret and duplicitous nature of the actions of especially the FBI and the CIA. These are the problems of secrets in a democracy.
This is a lesson learned from the first Trump administration. He's learned a lesson and has decided that the first and foremost things that he needs is people that are going to have his back.
Amen. And I'm glad he learned that lesson. So part of also, I think the reasoning behind selecting Matt Gaetz as the Attorney General was one, like throw something against the wall and see if it sticks. Find somebody who's truly righteous, who has the capabilities for
Well, hold
all.
on. Let's make sure you don't get misquoted on this. Like I'm not sure you're saying Matt Gaetz is truly righteous, but has righteous indignation against the correct party, right? Like that's
Well, I'm saying righteous in an understanding, not of like religious righteousness. I'm not nominating him to be a preacher, although I'm sure that maybe it would be is a charismatic Christian. But righteous in that he has been wronged and he is seeking right. And,
yes.
and
Yeah, I think that's frequently righteous indignation. That's that he's got a legitimate beef for having been wronged by a party and is looking for retribution.
yes, so he can be a tool that Trump picks up that he knows is not going to be distracted or corrupted by a system. Like it's a far stretch of the imagination that he's going to engage in the corruption that has been ruining his life and his family's life, discrediting them for the last 10 years, 8 years or so. So that's the number one reason for selecting him. There's also the reasons that he is capable. He has the acuity, the charisma to also articulate. I mean, if you've seen Matt Gaetz in hearings, and he's quick, he is not tripped up with dissemblance. The you know when whenever the members of government, the FBI, the Department of Justice have tried to evade him, he is quite able to, on the spot, pin them down, to expose, I don't know, errors in logic or dissemblance or outright lies that they're engaging in, and that's very important to have in that position.
Well, but the position of attorney general, like, is it? It's not a requirement that you're actually an attorney. Is Matt Gaetz an attorney? I don't remember this point.
I think he is an attorney, but no, I don't think it. I don't think that they're the requirement is nomination or selection by the president of the United States.
It's along with all the rest of these secretaries, even though they would head departments and do all this kind of stuff. It's just whoever the president picks. They don't necessarily have to rise through the ranks of that
Yeah,
department or
and
be part of the military or something like that.
I mean, even like look into judicial appointments, and back to the earlier Trump administration. Not all judges have to have careers in law or be lawyers. Even this legal profession is one that's cobbled together and one that they've given their own stamp of approval on through bar associations and anyway. I think Trump, Matt Gaetz, I thought was a great selection because of his righteousness, because of his ability to articulate and to pin down other politicians. But there's also other things that were going on. There was an ethics complaint that was being pushed through the House, and the House, Congress is not the judiciary, although it loves to pretend to be so.
Yeah,
And
because it has all these hearings which have the trappings of being a courtroom, but nothing that they do carries weight like the judiciary does.
yeah, and the bars for, or the thresholds for, uh, you know, for making assertions in the House are whatever the political body agrees on. And there were ethics violations. There was an ethics violation case against Matt Gaetz, and it was to be decided, and to be released. And Matt Gaetz withdrew from.
Well, he resigns from the House, what, like a day before or the day that it was supposed to be released, this ethics report?
Yes, so he resigns the day before, and that stops or stalls the further defamation of his character.
Well, it
As
stops the release, but I think that's just by convention, is what I remember reading, is that they can still release it if they decide to. And I think there was some call for even Biden to step in and do something about getting it released or to weigh in on it because I
more political machinations, and you have to want it causes whatever, it changes the facts on the ground, because if those who are pressing for the ethics violations against Matt Gaetz like go to that extent in order to reveal that charge against him, or to reveal that decision against him, you have to wonder, why are they picking on somebody who's no longer a member of the House? So their authority at the point that Matt Gaetz abdicates, resigns, is much lessened. And so this is all politics, and they'd have to stretch their necks out a lot further in order to attack him at that point. So I think that was another reason that he was chosen, to both take him out of the political gamesmanship that's going on against him, by again, I mean, the scurrilousness of politicians is unbelievable at this point. You would think that Democrat or Republican, once they begin to understand what was going on in the history of this case, would back off and say, "Wow, this person has been wronged." But instead, no, they're as myopic as can be, and merely wanted to gain a vote, or gain a small political advantage in the House. So pull Matt Gaetz out of the House of Representatives, put him in the running for Attorney General. If he sticks as Attorney General, then you have an absolute dynamo who is going to rock the boat. And Trump certainly wants the boat rocked with regards to the FBI and the CIA. If it doesn't stick, I begin to understand a little bit more why
Yeah,
Mark.
then you get a couple things out of that. You start to flesh out who is your opposition. You start to see how the political votes line up. I think it speaks again to something that we mentioned the other day, which is the political savviness of the Trump administration has leveled up significantly with a pick like this. Because if you start analyzing it just from a game theory perspective, you start to see that there's a lot of wins no matter which way things line up for Matt Gaetz. And I think you summarized that well. Like throw it against the wall and see if it sticks. If he gets in there, you've got your firebrand with an axe to grind against the FBI. If not, you learn a lot about what your opposition is, and you also get Matt out of a sticky situation where you give him cover to get out of the house.
Well, and a new place for him has also been created. If Marco Rubio has
Wait,
left,
what is the yeah? Tell us about the new place for Matt Gaetz because I was curious about that because he's out of the house now. But then where's he going to go next?
well, so for starters, if high level cabinet positions are much more powerful than
Then a rank
a
and file member of the house.
yes, no dispersions amongst our honorable representatives. But chief among them, pulling Matt Gaetz and the likes of Matt Gaetz with his talents in pressing witnesses that have been summoned before Congress, to me, replacing Marco Rubio, and Marco Rubio's Senate seat will be appointed by Ron DeSantis, Republican governor of Florida. And so I fully expect, or I should say I would not be surprised. I have no expectations because I understand that Matt Gaetz can be used to great effect in any of deputy secretaries or in anywhere in the Trump administration. If he's going to be loyal and he has a deep understanding of the political machine that exists in Washington D.C., and he is motivated by exposing and thwarting the underhanded duplicity of the DOJ. He becomes another person that Trump will be looking to trot out on his chessboard as the other pieces fall. So it might make most sense to ask or to expect Ron DeSantis to put Matt Gaetz in place of Marco Rubio. Maybe he gets another job in the upper cabinet of Donald Trump. But either way, it gets him out of the I don't know, the pettiness of the House of Representatives. Not that there's not pettiness everywhere, but it gets him above that fray. And he has already distinguished himself as an adept politician and an articulate politician. And I think that's what's important to remember here. And also to understand what has been going on behind the scenes and how he has been exposed to the corruption of the black operations, the secret, the amoral operations of bureaucrats that exist in government. And so Trump is going to use him to try to correct that wherever he can.
So in reading the wrap up that was written in the too long didn't read summary of this story, there's some unresolved questions about how things actually shaped up, where certain information came from. Do you think that this is going to be a priority for the Trump administration to dig into this? Like, are they going to hand out one of those political favors and say this is one of the priorities for the Department of Justice to figure out exactly what was going on here and how was lawfare weaponized against Matt Gaetz and Don Gaetz?
Well, this is where I am concerned about Trump and Republicans writ large expectations of how they can correct these abuses, because um, I don't think that we can expect a lot from the Department of Justice or the CIA. And this is why I think it's so very important for the states to be calling the Department of Justice and the federal bureaucracies to court and threatening the bodies of these politicians. And I think it's even more important that we start to expect governors and mayors of especially large cities to also stand up to the federal government.
Well, we've actually seen that, right? What was it? The governor of Colorado said, "You try and come in here and take any of these illegal immigrants, we're going to fight you on the ground with weapons." Didn't Wasn't something like that said recently?
Well, that was the mayor. That was the mayor of Denver.
Mayor of Denver. Okay, I thought it was a little bit higher up individual. Let me try and track that one down. I'll throw it on the screen quick. But we're seeing some of this, right?
Yes, and we've been seeing it. We've been seeing it for. Um, I mean, it is the true answer to addressing the abuses of the federal government, and it was the original understanding
And,
of the
and this guy
American.
looks like he's 12, right? I can't like the suit that he's wearing. I don't. It looks like
You know, he looks really young there. This is the mayor of Denver. What's his name? Is it like Mark Adams or something? No, this is Mike Johnston. Hmm. I haven't.
There's too many Mike Johns in politics right now.
There's a lot of Johnstons out there. Johnston, Mikes. There's only one Cash Patel, I'll tell you that. Um, the I'm not surprised, and I think that that everyday Americans should begin to understand that you can have Republican values at the federal government and Democratic values at the state government at the same time, and that the true power of the Democrats and the long name of the Democratic Party is the Democratic Republican Party. It was started by Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson was the was one of the most voracious anti-federalist states' rights, uh, a union of republics, framers of the Constitution, somebody who understood the political order in a way that I think that we yearn to return to in the United States. And Republicans, they talk a big game about being the party of states' rights, but um, they are the party of the judiciary. Who was the Department of Justice created under? It was created under Republicans, under progressive Republicans, and um, and they meant well in 1870. Going back to Ulysses S. Grant, but there are we face problems that become very difficult, especially if there is no king and we have a convoluted political process in a democratic government. Um, if we do not have different levels of government fighting against each other to ensure the rights of the citizens of our country, and so we need not just the attorney generals of states, and I'm thinking of Andrew Bailey and Ken Paxton are the top of the list that come to mind in states that have or attorney generals of states that have been bringing a lot of cases against the federal government to the Supreme Court. But we also need governors.
I think Texas has been famously doing some of this too, right? Because
Well, that's Ken Paxton. Ken
oh, okay.
Paxton is the Attorney General of Texas. Andrew Bailey is the Attorney General of Missouri, and they've been really leading that charge in various cases, and everything from immigration to um, immigration to the COVID responses, uh, and to abortion. I mean, all of these cases like come into question of who controls the bodies of everyday Americans, and And we also need governors to begin to step up to that too, because this is also why the military, uh, the United States federal military, answers to the Constitution, not to the president, not to Congress, but answers to the Constitution. And governors need to understand that and to face down the threat that the federal government is going to send in the military to force and coerce the various states to do. And if that sounds like the Civil War, that's the same question that the Civil War never answered. And I'm of the opinion that the use of the federal military and the federal military powers to coerce states to do anything was incredibly wrong, and was a political catastrophe. So
So I guess there's a question that comes from that is do the members of the armed service, since their oath is to the Constitution, do they have the authority to not comply with an order that would be against the Constitution?
I mean,
Has
that
that has that ever come up? Has that been resolved?
I think it comes up all the time. I don't have any specifics that come to mind, but
We're
um,
overdue for a history lesson. It's been a while since FOMO's done a history show. Maybe we should tackle that subject.
well, I'm thinking of much more recent histories, and some court martials that have been brought against American servicemen who protested the decisions and claimed um, that the orders that were given to them were unconstitutional. So I can definitely freshen up on that. We can have that conversation. But just more broadly, I don't know that we have a military that has the appetite to. I don't know what happens if the Joint Chiefs of Staff send a squadron into the state of Texas. I don't think that's going to happen. And we often see in these times uh, the executive, the president, turn around and use the National Guards, but we need to remember the National Guards are the militias of each state, and and I mean, I also find it interesting to go back to again the creation of the greenbacks and the national banking system, and think about how what were the tensions between uh, the arms of coercion of the states and the federal government before a national the national dollar existed, because a militia, the Colorado militia was almost a body unto itself in the 1860s, 1850s, and whenever we all of a sudden had printed paper that people believed in a national banking system to accept and pass around those notes, those militias started answering to a different authority. And so this is also why I think state monies, or fracturing the one currency that we've all had access to since the Civil War, is also going to have massive implications in how we run our states and how we run this country.
Well, I think we've got an idea for a show coming up for next week, but we're out of time for today. We'll see you tomorrow, or not tomorrow, but next week on FOMO.
All right, see you next week.